Eagles had 3 sacks before Sunday's game against the Jets. They have 13 sacks now. I'm not a doctor, but I think that means they got 10 sacks on Sunday.
I concur.
So the Eagles won 31-6 over the Jets on Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field. They're 3-2. They're feeling pretty good about themselves going into the worst possible stretch of a season because we're going to blame Bryce Harper for that one. Or just the Phillies, because Bryce Harper was good. Anyway, this isn't a Phillies podcast. This is an Eagles podcast. We're here for the latest episode of the No Huddle Show. Mike Kaye is here. I'm here. It wasn't a perfect game. The Jets aren't quite a football team. At least their offense is not. That is one of the worst offenses I've ever seen on a football. You've covered the Jaguars for a long time, so you've seen some bad offenses in your day. We've talked about how bad Luke Falk is. He lived up to that, or down to that, I should say. Their offensive line is just absolutely ghastly. We're going to go into all the numbers and everything, but this was like the first, since you and I have covered this team, probably the first like full-on, the defense won the game. The offense didn't matter. Like, the offense could have done nothing, and they pretty much did. I mean, they had some big plays, but this was just like a full-on defensive domination. And this kind of game you need to see. They really needed this game. Just kind of, I feel like this opens the floodgates for them going forward, because that pass rush just was non-existent. But we've both been critical of the lack of sacks. Jim Schwartz was always trying to play it off. I think he's going to be pretty happy with the sacks he got today.
Yeah, they've added a lot of swag to their bag with, 10 sacks, 2 defensive touchdowns, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. This defense dominated this game, and I don't care who it's against. When you can put up that type of production in the NFL, that's very important, and it's important for building momentum. Sacks, interceptions, forced fumbles, they all come in droves. Like, it is a rhythm thing. A lot of people think that's a cliche, but it does happen like that. And I think, Josh Sweat, Vinny Curry, Brandon Graham, they all got their opportunities to build some confidence. And I thought the way this defense, this was a complete defensive performance. The linebackers played well. They tackled well. Basically shut down Le'Veon Bell. Rodney McCloud maybe had the best game I can remember that he's had as an Eagle, even compared to the Super Bowl performance. He was just everywhere today. I just think overall, this is a good building block, like you said, for the defense moving forward. The offense was kind of a bystander, kind of how you alluded to. I mean, this was not a game.
Doug Peterson was not happy with the offense, by the way.
But this game was not a game they needed to win. I mean, the Eagles' defense outscored the Jets' offense today. Save for a special teams fumble, which we'll talk about later, which is maybe the only major blunder of this game. The Eagles shut out the Jets, and you're looking at something like 27 or 31-0. I think that Jim Schwartz catches a lot of heat for certain ways he calls games, but this was his game. He called a great game. There was constant pressure. They blitzed very well. Orlando Scandrick was phenomenal today. But, I'm going to pass the ball back to you. But, for me...
And I won't drop it.
Yeah, you won't, hopefully. I'm a big fan of defensive football. That's a big deal to me. That's the way I look at things.
You kind of had to be when you were covering the Jaguars.
Yeah, that's fair. Wow, that was pretty good. Good for you.
Good Jaguars burn.
Yeah, good Jaguars burn. All 2 Jaguars fans that followed my coverage over here are going to give me pants.
So your wife and...
Yeah. So, anyway, on that note, I think what you take away from this is exactly what you said. This is something that you can build upon. And remember, they were without... Sidney Jones didn't play in this game. He was active, but he didn't play. They were without 3 of their top 4 healthy, supposedly healthy corners.
So think about it. They came in this year, everybody is hyped on their cornerbacks. There's 6 cornerbacks. Jalen Mills, Ronald Darby, Cravon LeBlanc, Rasul Douglas, Sidney Jones, Avonte Maddox. One of those guys played today. That's insane.
And the other...
Corey Unlin, man.
Yeah, and the other 3 corners had played a combined 5 snaps for the Eagles this season. So, Orlando Scandrick comes off his couch. I'm not allowed to say... I've learned that players do not like...
No, you said off the street.
Yeah, no, that's why I said off his couch.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because Kamar Aiken was not happy when you said he came off the street. Because he took it literally, I guess? I don't know.
We only bring that up every month on this podcast.
Yeah, for the people who listen to all of them.
Yeah, callback jokes. They're fun. he just came off the couch. 2 forced sack fumbles.
2 sacks for a corner.
I mean,
I saw some crazy stat about how he was the first one to do that in a long time. I'm going to pull up real quick.
Yeah, we should note he came into this season with 11.5 career sacks. He's a good blitzer. He's a guy.
So he's only the 5th defensive back since they started charting forced fumbles to have 2 sacks and 2 forced fumbles in the same game, and that was in 1993 is when they first started charting that.
Well, and even what's more impressive is he returned one for a touchdown.
Well, he ripped it. So I wanted to start off. Let's hand out a bunch of gold stars. Let's go back and forth and lay them, because there was a bunch of guys who deserve recognition. It was a lot of random guys that if you coming in this game, you wouldn't have predicted that we'd be talking about them. We'll start with Orlando Scandrick. He didn't start the game. They actually started in a base defense with Craig James was the outside corner, which I didn't expect that, but they clearly trust that guy, and he played pretty well, I think. We'll probably get into him, I'm sure. But Orlando Scandrick, he came in the slot pretty early on, and then he played most of the game in there. He was covering Jamison Crowder. He pretty much shut him down, though Luke Falk was the one throwing the ball. But yeah, he straight up, late in the game, he straight up ripped the ball out of Luke Falk's hand. It was a strip sack, but it was more of a rip sack. He ripped it out of his hand and just brought it easily to the end zone. Like you said, this dude hadn't played football in a month. He's a veteran. If anybody's going to be able to do that, it's a veteran like that. But he just earned himself a spot on this team. You can't cut him now.
Yeah, he is not going anywhere.
So we've mentioned this. It's going to be so interesting to see how they handle this cornerback position. Because you and I were talking in the locker room earlier about how you can't even if you really like Craig James as much as I think they probably do, you can't cut him because somebody's going to claim him. You can't. Somebody's going to pick up Orlando Scandrick after watching. I know it was against the Jets, but all of a sudden they have this embarrassment of. I don't even know if riches is the right word because a lot of those guys are inconsistent. But Ronald Darby should be back in a few weeks, hypothetically. Jalen Mills is eligible to come back after week 6. Crayvon LeBlanc is eligible to come back after week 8. And it seems like both the guys are getting healthy. So it's going to be the point being Craig James and Orlando Scandrick have earned a spot in the NFL at least.
Yeah, I think Craig James is here to stick. I think Orlando Scandrick, now that his contract's not guaranteed, probably got a good shot because he's making the minimum. Rasul Douglas deserves to be a starting corner on this team. I think we should say that.
They were targeting him more than Craig James, by the way.
Right. Well, because
of the receiver that was over there,
because Robbie Anderson's a guy who's got speed, and Rasul Douglas.
I just found that kind of funny. It was like Craig James was shutting down his side of the field or something.
But what's interesting is, he shut down Robbie Anderson. We talked about him struggling against speed, and he did it. Robbie Anderson had 1 catch for 16 yards.
Again, point out, it is Luke Falk.
Right.
That's the disclaimer, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. But, when you look at what this defense was able to do, I don't care who it is. This kid, Luke Falk, for what it's worth, was a draft pick. They still have Le'Veon Bell, who they paid a lot of money to. Kelvin Beachum makes a decent salary for a left tackle. Ryan Khalil's been a Pro Bowler in this league. It's not like they were playing the replacements.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, again, I think we should take this performance with a grain of salt a little bit, but we should also be impressed by what they did. Rasul Douglas has been the lone constant at cornerback, and I still don't understand why he's always the last resort, but he's been very good. Since the Washington game, he's been pretty good. Craig James, you talked about the confidence in him. This team clearly saw this guy, and I read somewhere that they actually saw him when they were looking to scout another guy on the Vikings, and he stood out on tape to them during the preseason. So he's a guy that I think, if he can continue to play, he played better. Look, listen to this. In his first game...
Played better than Darby had all year.
In his first game as a starting cornerback, they didn't allow any passing touchdowns. Think about that for a second. There were no passing touchdowns. And he was a starting cornerback, and he had played 5 snaps before that.
Maybe he'll still be the best corner in the NFL after this week. I don't know.
Maybe. We'll see. He had his moments.
I know. At the beginning, he had a couple plays back-to-back that were bad, but bounced back.
And I think Scandrick offers value. Look, Unland's shown that he can coach up guys on short notice.
It's amazing.
He gets a lot of flack, but, I don't know any position coach that has dealt with the amount of adversity that he has over the last 2 years.
Even the last 3 years. Darby was hurt that whole, first year. He was in 2017.
And Douglas played.
Yeah.
And played well. And they didn't have Sidney Jones. And,
He made Patrick Robinson rich.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about...
He didn't make him that, but he helped him.
People talk about who has he developed. I mean, look at Chris Harris. Chris Harris was an afterthought before he came to Denver. I mean, he was a free agent. Or he was an undrafted free agent, I believe. Or he was a low pick. I don't remember. Whatever. Anyway, Oakland developed him. All
right, another gold star, Nate Gary. So he started the game in that base defense. He's the third linebacker.
Yeah, he was a weak.
Everybody on the team loves Nate Gary, especially the coaches. I mean, he gets some criticism. You mentioned this, and I think it's because he legit wasn't good last year. That's just the reality. But he's now leading the team in interceptions. Rasul Douglas led the team with 3 last year. He already has 2. And the one he had today, he jumped in front of a pass intended for Le'Veon Bell, brought it all the way back for an interception. And he was saying how great it felt because I think he said he hasn't scored a defensive touchdown since high school. Because he didn't score it in college. He said he blocked a kick or something at one point. He didn't count that. And somebody asked him, so did you ever score any in high school? He's like, I was in South Dakota. Come on. That was his response. But it was a really good play from him. He's looked pretty good this season, and it looks like they have a nice little rotation at linebacker, especially as Camus gets healthier. But he definitely deserves some laudits for today.
Yeah, I agree. And, they're going to have to bench one of the guys for Camus, who actually looked pretty good in this game. He had a tackle for a loss in the first half, and he told me after the game that he really needed that one. It helped his confidence. They have 4 linebackers that can play. I mean, Camus, Nigel, Bradham.
None of them are stars. None of them are as talented as Jordan Hicks probably, but they're all solid.
Right. But I think they've handled that situation well. They knew that they were kind of going to be bare bones with Camus out, and they've kind of made it by. A star that I wanted to hand out was for Brandon Graham. He had the hat trick today.
Man.
It's tough to get 2 sacks in this league.
It's the first time he's ever done it, 3 sacks.
When you can get 3 sacks, damn.
And 2 of them were back-to-back almost. Not exactly, but they were really close to each other.
He's played really well against the run and gotten regular pressure, but he hasn't gotten that key stat. And I think this was not a coming out party. You know what Brandon Graham is, but I think this will build some confidence for him. He's a guy that when he finds a rhythm as a pass rusher, he can deliver some big plays. Like I said, he's come up huge as a run stopper this season.
Yeah, he was 4th coming into this game in pressures this season. He just wasn't getting home on anything. He only had 4 sacks last year also.
Which is the story of his life, kind of, or his career.
Well, so he got 2 of the sacks today inside, by the way.
Right.
And that he got a lot when he had 9.5 sacks 2 years ago. That he was getting a lot of them inside. So maybe that's the move now. You play him inside a lot more.
Well, and it was out of necessity, but it could actually be to the benefit.
Especially if Josh Sweat and DeSean Hall can keep playing the way they did.
That's another star I want to hand out.
Yeah, okay. So jump to that.
Yeah, Josh Sweat. Everything he did today was violent. If you saw his stop on the kickoff return, it was violent. He threw that dude to the ground. If you saw his huge run stop I believe it was in the second quarter, threw the guy to the ground. And then his sack, he told me after the game that he didn't want to be left out. He saw everybody eating, and he wanted a piece. And he threw Luke Falk to the ground. I thought Luke Falk's head was going to pop off. He hit the back of his head hit the ground so hard. But Josh Sweat's a guy who really wanted to play with aggression. He feels comfortable. When he was at FSU, he was a read and react defensive end. It's tough to kind of kick out some of those habits. But he says that he can play fast now because he's getting reps. Remember, last year he sparsely got reps, and now he is getting into a rhythm on the field. Nothing's too big for him. He's a guy that I think if he can kind of take that next step, it's going to be a huge boost for the defense. Who's your next gold star?
So let's go to offense because we've talked all about defense. Jordan Howard, I thought, had another really good game.
Yep.
He's making it clearer and clearer that he should be the back from the first snap. Because every time he had his first rush, I should look into this because I'm pretty sure most of his first rushes have gone for more than 10 yards.
Yeah, he had a 15-yard
15 yards today. His final line was he had 13 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. He didn't get targeted in the passing game today. Miles Sanders was really good in the passing game. Didn't really run the ball very well. But Jordan Howard, man, we don't need to retroactively criticize Doug for the first 2 games of the season, but Jordan Howard should have been playing more. It's so obvious. And I've seen the excuse he likes to get accustomed to his players, but Miles Sanders is a rookie, so that doesn't really make sense. But What'd you like? How you saw you like what you saw out of Jordan today?
He's just so patient.
Yeah,
and
it really
I think
is.
We've talked about this before. He's a guy that is a really good mix of patience and skill. He doesn't have the burst or the speed that you really hone in on and get enamored with the running back. But he's so good at following his blocks, hitting holes hard. He's a guy that I think is perfect for this offense because there is so much speed surrounding the running back position at the wide receiver position. There's also so much size, and this is a team that run blocks very well. So I think when you have a guy that isn't going to BS his movement, which I think is very important, he doesn't there's no wasted movement with him. And so when he can hit the openings with confidence and with burst, you're going to get big plays. He also is really good at getting yards after contact, and that's something that this team needs because it's such a momentum builder for this offensive line if they know it's not all on them. And I think Jordan Howard, when he was running well, you saw that opening drive. The opening drive worked, not because of Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, I think, had one actual completion on the drive. Jordan Howard was the catalyst for that first scoring drive that they led and got up on the board and never looked back.
It's interesting. He's making himself some money right now. He's going to be free agent this offseason. I really think the Eagles should bring him back, whether that's on a one-year deal or one of their creative Howie contracts or something. Just build this running game around him and Sanders. They clearly complement each other really well. Sanders, we talked. You were pretty confident in the preseason that he would become a pass catcher. He didn't really show that in college that much. He didn't really get a chance to. He's like their best deep threat right now with DeSean out. He had a 36-yard catch. He's had 3 30-yard catches or 4, which is wild for a running back, by the way. And I think they were all on wheel routes. It's not like he caught it and ran with it. But Jordan Howard just really impressed me. Just to go back to, so there wasn't that many offensive guys that deserved gold stars today.
Sorry.
You're going back to Howard?
Yeah. So David Montgomery scored his second touchdown of the season today. That brings the Bears' total to 3 as a running back group. Jordan Howard has 5 touchdowns this season.
Well, I didn't even realize that. That's crazy. Because he had 3 last week, right?
Yeah, so I still don't understand why he was traded.
For a conditional 5th.
Yeah, I mean they're going to conditional 6th. That's going to be.
It's going to be a 5th at this point, unless he gets hurt, I guess.
But Jordan Howard's he should be. He hasn't started a game for the Eagles, but because Miles Sanders started. But
this reflects poorly on the Bears for sure.
Very.
The fact they stopped using him last year, pretty much. And Tariq Cohen hasn't been that good for them either, by the way.
I mean, what reflects poorly on the Bears is they lost to the Raiders without Tyrell.
Oh, they lost?
Yeah, 24.
See, we miss a lot of the stuff that happens throughout the day.
Wow.
Eagles legend Chase Daniel started at quarterback for them, too.
What I will say is this Atlanta Falcons loss continues to look worse.
And the way they played against the Redskins looks bad, too, by the way.
Oh, man. Well,
but, okay, so just one more gold star, and then we'll start getting into some more nitty-gritty, and then we'll maybe look ahead a little bit. We mentioned him earlier a little bit, but we should just mention Rodney McCloud one more time. So I talked to him earlier this week, and me and somebody else were asking about how we feel like he's played so far, because everybody's been saying he looks even better than before he got injured last year when he missed all of last year, and they really missed him last year. We're learning that. But he said that he had wished he thought he played well, but he wished he had an interception by now. And then he had an interception today. It was a really good play. He's just flying around the field. He looks faster than he did before. Again, he's another guy. We thought he wasn't going to be back this season. Now I'm starting to think they should bring him back next season.
Yeah, I tweeted out during the game that he was like a heat-seeking missile. They basically put the safeties on. They had the safeties spy on Le'Veon Bell, and I spoke to him after the game, and he said kind of something to what your point was. He told Malcolm Jenkins, he said, we got to get on the board. Safeties need to get on the board, which means they need to get an interception.
Yeah, because they hadn't had one yet, yeah.
He and Malcolm are such a good tandem back there. And
they're so smart, too.
I think we all are guilty of undervaluing McCloud because Jenkins is so good.
I remember us both saying we didn't think it was a huge deal when they lost him last year, and we were just way wrong about that.
Yeah, that was a clear wrong move. So we brought up the cornerbacks earlier, but McCloud is so good that I think when Avonte Maddox comes back, he's your third safety. You take Sendejo off the field because they're playing Sendejo so hot, they're playing him in single high at times. Make that Maddox and maybe get rid of Zendejo, and then you've got your corners that way.
By the way, Zendejo didn't tackle any of his own teammates today, so he had that going for him, I guess.
Addition by subtraction, some would say.
Who are some guys that? So again, this second straight week we've gone this however long we've been doing this, and we haven't really talked about Carson Wentz that much. We did mention him this time. Last time we didn't mention him, but so let me tell you his final numbers. He was 17 of 29 for 189 yards and 1 touchdown. He has something like 320 yards combined over the last 2 weeks. He hasn't lost that many games. He hasn't necessarily been the reason they've won. He's just managed the games really well. These aren't MVP numbers, so I think the MVP campaign is probably over unless he just goes off over the next however many weeks are left in this season. He was okay. He wasn't bad. I don't think he was amazing. He had a really good throw to Zack, I believe it was at one point. His mobility is back. He ducked a Quinnen Williams sack at one point. It was pretty bad from the rookie. He just dove at him. Carson just sort of bent over and he flew past him. And at one point he also evaded a pass rush and gained 5 yards on a rush. But what was the final grade you ended up giving him?
I give him a B. I mean, he was a bystander. Or not a bystander. That's not fair. He just did his job. Yeah. He took what the defense gave him. There were several off-target throws in this one, and I don't know if it was a communication issue or whatever, but he wasn't very accurate today. He finished, I think, with just over 58% completion percentage, which isn't great when he wasn't really asked to do a lot. But I think when you look back on this game, no one's going to remember Carson Wentz's performance. It's just not going to be a thing.
For the last 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, last week...
he was better last week.
Yeah, he led drives. You could argue he led drives.
You're not going to pull up that box score when you're talking about the best Carson Wentz games of his career.
And you know what? That said, he's still completing about 60% of his passes. He's got 10 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. He's having a very efficient year. It's just a matter of he's in these situations where sometimes the running game takes over, which is good. It's not a problem.
They're a running team.
And the defense picks up it's okay to have games like that. I don't... A lot of people rush to criticize everything that Carson does or rush to praise everything that Carson does. And I think that that's a really short-sighted view of stuff. He just did his role. The quarterback doesn't always have to win games. We talk about, game managers being a bad thing. Sometimes that's exactly what you're doing, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're part of the solution and not the problem, you're doing a good job at the quarterback position, especially if you win.
I actually think it's a really good sign of progress from him because I agree. The biggest problem for him last year in particular, but I think just throughout his career, it's kind of been like this when games have been close, is that he tries to do too much. He tries to win the game on one throw, on one play, and you're seeing him kind of play within the offense more. And I think he's almost been forced into doing that just because of, I think we're seeing again and again how much they're missing DeSean Jackson, which is crazy to think about since he's basically played one game in 5 years here. If you think about it.
It's really crazy.
But, Nelson Aguilar, he continues to disappoint me, to be honest. Not like he needs to make me feel good or anything.
Jeez, but Dad.
There was a deep ball that he thought he maybe he was bumped a little bit, but he also wasn't really aware of where the ball was.
Yeah,
it seemed there was a deep he burned the corners. I don't know what corner it was. It might have been Tremaine Johnson. I'm not positive.
He got behind sticks coverage.
Yeah, and he was open, and Carson threw it well, and Nelson was like, "Look, you can't see me." But
it was a little bit of an overthrow, but yeah, he could have made that.
Yeah, but he should have been there for it. He was looking around for it, he didn't know where it was. He just doesn't seem to have the awareness of a fifth year that a fifth year receiver should.
So I was joking with a former 3 initial writer of NJ.com about this. I was like, wouldn't it be weird if he was only targeted once and was held without a catch for the second straight game? And it almost turned out that way. He had 1 catch for 20 yards.
Wow, 1 catch, 3 targets for 20 yards.
I bet you he still led them in
He did draw snaps. A pass interference at one point.
Yeah.
No.
Remember they challenged it.
And but there was a different play where he drew a pass interference earlier in the game.
Oh, maybe I'll look that up. But anyway, this game was largely forgettable. But
the actual
yes.
Maybe you're right, actually.
Especially on offense. And I guarantee you he was still probably one of their leaders in snap counts.
Yeah.
Like he was last year.
I think he was on there every play, probably. So Doug, Peterson said that he wasn't happy with the way the offense played. He thought they made too many mistakes.
They did.
It's kind of the second week in a row where the passing game is just like not there. And the Packers are a good team. They beat a good team in the Packers. It was because of the running game. But what's your level of concern as you head into a stretch where Minnesota, for all their faults, has a really good defense? Dallas has a really good defense. Buffalo has have a really good defense. So you're playing, and I think after that, the Bears have a really good defense. After that, the Patriots have maybe the best defense this league has seen in a long time. So how confident are you that this offense can bounce back against these teams, and how much of that depends on if DeSean Jackson plays?
All of it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where this team works so much on the chemistry between DeSean Jackson and Carson Wentz. Like, every other throw was to DeSean.
That week one, yeah.
He isn't. We talk about him only playing like basically one game in the last 5 years or last whatever years, but he was going to be a major player on this offense, and he makes this offense different. It's a credit to Doug Peterson that they are 3-2 right now. Like,
you can tell that they spent a lot of time this offseason building the playbook around DeSean.
Right, yeah. It does seem like they're a little... That's a great point. It does seem like they're a little limited, and they've gone back to the Ertz package. You know what I mean?
It hasn't been as dynamic as it was last year. Ertz has been good, but he's been doubled every play.
So I'll give you a couple of examples. So they did screens to Alshon Jeffrey, I think like 3 different times in this game. If DeSean's on that side of the field with him, he's automatically getting more yardage because you have to play off. If we thought that DeSean would be back this week, if he's back against Minnesota, I think they're in really good shape. I still think they can beat Minnesota. Minnesota's not a team that's going to...
My gut tells me he still won't be, just because he hasn't practiced yet.
Yeah.
I'm a little... It's one of those weird injuries, so I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas maybe was the game he came back, but they really could use him against Minnesota.
Yeah. I still think they can get by. I just think Dallas and Buffalo are going to be really tough without him.
Yeah. So there was one guy. So if there's any concerns going forward that you can take, I tweeted this. There's not really that much you can take away from a game like this. The Eagles beat a bad team. There's not. You don't leave here knowing if the Eagles are a good or a bad team. I think it's still kind of up in the air if they're a great team or if they're just a team competing for the playoffs. But if there's something to be worried about, I would say it's the return game. Well, the punt return game specifically. So Darren Sproles, he finally got into the top 5, by the way. He needed 30 yards. He got 32, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got hurt. He hurt his quad. This is never a good sign for him.
Wasn't in the locker room.
He dealt with that last year quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then Corey Clement comes in and immediately just makes just a dumb play. And he thought Ryan Lewis, who the Eagles called up this week, he thought he tipped it, but he didn't. So the ball bounced. So Corey Clement went to hit it away from a defender or something. I don't really know what his thought process was.
Yeah,
there.
it was so
the Jets got the ball, by the way.
Right. Yeah. If you hit the ball and you're the receiving team, if anybody on the receiving team hits the ball,
then it's a fumble, basically.
Then it's a fumble, correct. And so I think he thought that because Lewis turned. I actually thought Lewis hit.
Yeah, when you see the replay, he didn't though.
Yeah, he didn't. But it's one of those bang plays. It's tough. Corey Clement's kind of turned into
him and Aguilar's kind of make mistakes.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, when your role's that minimalized, when you make mistakes, they're highlighted. Yeah. And I think,
and by the way, the Jets scored off that, and it was the only score they had of the game.
Yeah, immediately too. It was reverse.
So it would have been a shutout essentially if not for that play.
But like I said, I think it's a bang play. You're going to kill him for it. I'm sure Doug was furious, and it doesn't help his role moving forward. But in the grand scheme of things, just don't do it again. You know what I mean? You can't make those type of mistakes on the road if you're down. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things.
Oh, and we'll throw one more gold star before we wrap up in a little bit here. One more gold star to your boy Cameron Johnson again.
Oh man, yeah.
He had a beauty that I think went out at what was it, the 4-yard line or something?
Yeah, that was great.
I joked that he needs to be in the MVP discussion at this point.
Jake Elliott also perfect through 5 games.
Yeah, wow, that's a good point actually. He hasn't really had to kick that many, but he hasn't missed any extra points.
Whatever,
either,
he's doing his job, right?
Yeah.
That's all you can ask for.
Just real quick, some other guys. Zach Ertz, he had 5 catches for 57 yards, a good touchdown. He had a good game. He had some really good catches.
It was his first touchdown of the season, too.
Yeah, it was. I didn't even think of that. So he's not like the fantasy guy that and this isn't a fantasy podcast, but he's not like the fantasy guy that he was last year just because the passing just hasn't been there. Jeffrey, he seems like he's like almost fully healthy. He looked pretty good, I thought.
They forced targeting.
They did. Like that. Yeah. There was one play, it was like 3rd and long, and they did a screen to him or something. Mm-hmm. But he had 6 catches for 52 yards. Dallas Goedert had a nice catch early in the game, 1 catch, and it went for 11 yards. I think it was a catch and run. It was pretty good. Mm-hmm. And other than that, nobody else had any catches. Mac Hollins had no catches. Arcega Whiteside, I don't even know if he played an offense.
Yeah, I didn't notice him.
And then defensively,
let's break down the sacks.
Yeah, I'll tell you everybody who got the sacks. So Brandon Graham had 3, as we mentioned. 2 for Scandrick, as we mentioned. And then this was like all in succession. It was like within the same drive or within 2 drives where you had Vinny Curry, Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett, Hassan Ridgeway, and DeSean Hall all get sacks.
It was a good evening.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a few of those guys, it was their first career sacks, I believe, right? Because Josh Sweat, DeSean Hall, he had a half a sack last year.
Yeah, it was
Ridgeway's probably his first one.
No, this is his 5th.
Really?
Yeah, Ridgeway actually played really well for the
Colts. Well, there you go. Oh, and look at all these QB hits. So they had 5, 6, 7, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 QB hits.
Luke Falk.
Oh, my God, yeah. Well, your guy David Fales came in at the end a little bit.
Yeah, good for him.
Did he throw the ball?
I didn't. I was paying attention to.
He did not. And Josh McCown played. He did a classic little victory formation.
Yeah, good for him. You know, it's nice to get into some production against your old team.
He had I don't know if you saw the video of him and Sam Darnold greeting each other.
Oh yeah, where he pretended like he was contagious.
So Josh McCown walks up to him and he has like the sweatshirt over his mouth and over his hand, and he's like pretending like he's contagious. They wound up hugging it out and everything, but that was a pretty good joke from him.
Good for you, Josh McCown. Good for you.
All right. Didn't really get any predictions on our last episode. That's disappointing, guys. Usually, you guys are pretty good about that. Usually.
They were just imagining that the Eagles were going to shut them out. You know?
Skylar Allen. He told me his name is pronounced Skylar. I probably pronounced it wrong before. He said 45-15. So
how did you pronounce his name? Scalar?
Schoolier? I don't know.
Whatever.
I've never seen it spelled like that before.
Well, shout outs to you.
Shout out to Skylar. All right. Is there any last final thoughts before we go?
Look, we're going to get into this later on in the week. This next podcast will be probably a bigger show, I would imagine, heading into this road trip because a lot's going on. But take pleasure in knowing that somehow these Eagles are very much in the division hunt. We're recording right now, and Dallas is being blown out by the Packers.
Are they?
Yeah.
The Eagles just beat.
Right. So
Cowboys might not be looking at
without Devontae Adams.
Yeah, and the Cowboys only beat bad teams to start the season. Now they've lost to probably 2 good teams. So.
Yeah, so this is a wide open division.
Wow.
You want to enter this stretch and win at least 1 game of these 3. I think
ideally 2.
Ideally 2.
But at least 1.
You've set yourself up where you only really need to win 1.
Yeah. Which is what we were saying. You want to be 500 after this trip.
Right. So I think that moving forward, the Eagles just need to play up to their standard. It's going to be not impossible, but it's going to be tough to replicate the production from the defense in this game. You just want to see that same intensity and that same efficiency moving forward. The offense really needs to play that second half of the Packers game kind of offense, you know?
I really think they're going to be – I wrote about this earlier this week. Like, I really think there's going to be a running team over the next month. Not just a running team, but until DeSean Jackson gets back, I think they're just going to feed Jordan Howard. All right, so we can end on that note. Thanks for listening, guys. Make sure you leave some comments on YouTube or tweet us and write reviews. And thanks for listening. We'll get another podcast for you guys later this week. Have a good one.